So today we are honoring the Divine Disappearance Day of Srila Madhavacharya, who is actually very important to us. He is the head of the Sampradaya, which we are connected with. So before speaking about him, I'm going to sing prayers to the departed Vaishnavas. And after singing the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas, then we will read a little bit what Srila Prabhupada said so we understand who's who and how do we fit into all of this. And then we will speak about his pastimes, his mission. And tonight, Srila Gurudev, Srila Sri Krishnadas Goswami, he will be speaking also in detail. So this is just like a little appetizer to increase your interest in knowing more about Srila Madhavacharya. So we'll sing now from the prayers to departed Vaishnavas, which is on page 78 in the songbook. Ye anilo premadana karuna pracho oh anilo premadana karuna pracho oh ye anilo premadana karuna pracho oh Aino Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Tako oh Aino Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Tako oh Gahamora Swaharupa Kaha Sananta Dasa Ragu Nata Patita Pava Kamora Bhakta Yuga Kavira Eka Kale Kota Gela Gora Natara Eka Kale Kota Gela Gora Natara Ashane Utibo Mata Anale Pashibo oh Goranga Lunera Niti Kota Gele Pabo. Oh. Goranga Lunera Niti Kota Gele Pabo. Oh. Say Saba Sange the Sange Ye Koilo Vila. Say Sanga Napaya Kande Narota Moda. Say Saba Sangera. Say Sanga Napaya Kande Narota Moda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur, Jaya Vaishnava Thakur. Srila Madhavacharya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pavakaturyo Stotra Satar Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pavakaturyo Stotra Satar Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Nam Acharya Swadas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar. Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavana Dham ki jai. Shri Mathura Dham ki jai. Shri Gokul Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Navadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Yamuna Mai ki jai. Shri Ganga Mai ki jai. Shri Mati Tulasi Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'm not going to read the translation now because there's always such short time for class, and you can read it afterwards. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gana Timidandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chaksu Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitan Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, unto my Shiksha Guru, unto Srila Prabhupada, unto His Holiness Bear Krishna Goswami, and to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So it is for our good fortune that we get to remember Sri Madhavacharya today. These appearance days and disappearance days of the great personalities are very important. For by hearing about them, we can associate with them, and it can give us great strength in our spiritual life. And we're going to be speaking about Madhavacharya, but first I wanted to read a purport from Srila Prabhupada from Adi Lila 1, text 1119 in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it is through Srila Prabhupada that we have this opportunity to come in contact with Sri Madhavacharya. And I felt very fortunate I had the opportunity to give class, because just like when the stomach is hungry, it's good to give the stomach food. So in the same way, when one has a mind that tends to be always thinking about something, instead of just thinking about random things or things that are not helpful for our devotional life, if we know, all right, I'm giving class, so then way ahead of time, we start thinking about Sri Madhavacharya, reading books, listening to classes, and trying to apply in our own life. So I hope that whatever I have absorbed in hearing, that I can somehow be able to speak, because I have a tendency to love to hear, but then I also have to be able to share it. So here, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the spiritual masters. In the verse, he says, these three deities of Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govind, and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and the soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. And this is a purport by Srila Prabhupada. The author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita offers his respectful obeisances unto the three deities of Vrindavan, named Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govinda Dev, and Sri Radha Gopinathaji. These three deities are the life and soul of the Bengali Vaishnavas or Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who have a natural aptitude for residing in Vrindavan. The four Vaishnava acharyas, who are the great authorities of the four Vaishnava disciplic succession, as well as Sripad Shankarya of the Mayavadi school, appeared in the Pancha Dravida provinces. Among the four Vaishnava acharyas, who are all accepted by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Sri Ramanuja Acharya appeared in the southern part of Andhra Pradesh at Mahatapuri. Sri Madhavacharya appeared at Pajakam near Vimanagiri, the district of Mangalore. Sri Vishnu Swami appeared at Panja, and Sri Nimbaraka appeared at the Mungira Patana in the extreme south. So there is the Rudra Sampradaya, the Brahma Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya, and they each have acharyas. So we are a part of the Madhava Sampradaya, but a speciality of the Madhava Sampradaya, which is a Gaudiya. And there's a distinction between that and the Tattvavadis, which we'll read about. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the chain of disciplic succession from Madhava Acharya, but the Vaishnavas in his line do not accept the Tattvavadis, who also claim to belong to the Madhava Sampradaya. To distinguish themselves clearly from the Tattvadi branch of Madhava's descendants, The Vaishnavas of Bengal prefer to call themselves Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sri Madhavacharya is also known as Sri Gaura Purnananda, and therefore the name Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya is quite suitable for the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, accepted initiation in the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. So sometimes it might be said, like, how are we a part of that sampradaya? Or how is Lord Chaitanya a part of that sampradaya? But it is explained here in Adi Lila 6, text 640. Thinking he, Sri Advaitacharya, is a disciple of Sri Madhavendra Puri, Lord Chaitanya obeys him, rejecting him as spiritual master. We read about that the other day. Sri Madhavendra Puri is one of the acharyas in the disciplic succession from Madhavacharya. Madhavendra Puri had two principal disciples, Ishwara Puri and Sri Advait Prabhu. Therefore, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is a disciplic succession from Madhavacharya. The fact has been accepted in the authorized books as Gauraganodesha Deepika and Prameya Ratnavali, as well as by Gopal Guru Goswami. The Gauraganodesha Deepika clearly states the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas as follows. So Srila Prabhupada always really stressed the importance of disciplic succession and hearing a disciplic succession. And there are four main Vaishnava disciplic successions. And maybe their philosophies are somewhat different, but they are teaching the personalism, the worship. In fact, which we'll be reading about soon, that Srila Madhavacharya, he had a real mission. And just like Krishna told Arjuna, you should fight. So Madhavacharya, he had the instruction to go to war, and to go to war against the impersonal teachings of Shankaracharya of Mayavadi philosophy. Lord Brahma is a direct disciple of Vishnu, the Lord of the spiritual sky. His disciple is Narada. Narada's disciple is Vyasa, and Vyasa's disciples are Sukadev Goswami and Madhavacharya. Padmanabhacharya is a disciple of Madhavacharya, and Narahari is a disciple of Padmanabhacharya. Madhava is a disciple of Narahari. Adhoksha is a direct disciple of Madhava, and Jayatirtha is a disciple of Akshobhya. Jayatirtha's disciple is Janasindhu, and his disciple is Mahanidhi. Vijayanidhi is a disciple of Mahanidhi, and Rajendra is a disciple of Vijayanidhi. Jayadharma is a disciple of Rajendra. Purushottama is a disciple of Jayadharma. Shriman Lakshmipati is a disciple. Vyasatirtha is a disciple of Purushottama, and Madhavendra Puri is a disciple of Lakshmipati. So we are connected in this way through Madhavendra Puri, and the speciality of Madhavendra Puri was up to that time, the mood of the followers of Madhava was very much with the rules and regulations and very beautiful worship, which we'll read about. And at the same time, it was Madhavendra Puri who brought this mood of ecstatic love, which comes through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's so many more quotes that Srila Prabhupada gave in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but for now we want to speak about Madhavacharya himself. So it is actually said that there was a great concern amongst the demigods that the earth was being overtaken by this impersonalism. Shankaracharya actually is Lord Shiva, a great devotee, but he was given the service of taking people away from Buddhism, and there's a whole history. But now the whole mentality was completely atheistic, actually, against the worship of God, saying that God has no form. So at that particular time, the demigods went to Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu said, I will send the demigod Vayu. and he shall do great service there. So at that particular time, Vayu came with folded hands, and he accepted that instruction. So it is said that Madhavacharya is actually Vayu. And we know that also so was Bhima, and also so was Hanuman. So from his early childhood, we'll see that he was performing different miracles, and he had great strength and great love for the pastimes of Lord Ram. So I'm going to go on and read some. So Madhavacharya was the son of Majega Bhatta. He lived in a village called Prajakshetra and would travel to Udupi every day to perform worship in the Anantashav temple there. Majabaya Bhatta was a Shivali Brahmana who worshipped Shiva but understood Vishnu to be the Supreme Lord. Actually, the linga in the temple of Anteshwar was considered by the Brahmana to represent Lord Parashuram. So he was feeling very concerned that it had been 12 years and he still hadn't had a child. So every day he'd be walking a far distance and doing worship. Meanwhile, one day there was this person that appeared to be crazed, and he went to the top of the flagpole, and he started doing all kind of strange things. And then when he got everyone's attention, then he started speaking, and he said, when he captured everyone's attention in this way, the man's mood suddenly changed. Actually, had been possessed by the deity Anteshwar. While the crowd stood watching, he announced the following message: Mukya Prana, an incarnation of Vayu, the wind god, who is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, will soon appear here at Udupi. He will smash all kinds of impersonal philosophies and reestablishing the supremacy of the Lord's personal form, as well as a process of pure devotional service. This devotee will possess the six opulences: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation to an extraordinary degree. No longer will the humble devotees have to hear the so-called spiritual masters who blaspheme the Supreme Lord by claiming that he is deaf, dumb, without form, and covered by illusion. This great Acharya's mission will be to smash all these offensive philosophies to pieces. After defeating all opposition, he will establish real religion and thus deliver the pious devotees from their perilous condition. So the Vaishnavas, they were all feeling so much anxiety that everything that was being taught was impersonalism. There was no proper teachings being taught. That evening, when Majigagabata walked 12 kilometers back to his village, he had no idea of the role that he would play in regards to this incarnation of Vayu. Majigay was a young Brahmin who had rigorously studied the Vedas, although even as a student he had the reputation of a scholar. He was never misled by the Mayavadi philosophy, but put forward by Shankaracharya. Instead, he always exhibited attachment to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. And his wife's name was Vedavati, who was also a very wonderful Vaishnavi who was attached to the worship of Lord Narayan. They were very, very austere. They weren't enamored by material society, friendship, and love. So when they had gone still had not had a child, and they went to the family deity, they performed a very, very austere fast, actually. And they decided to drink only milk, and they observed the same vows that Kashyapa Muni and his wife Aditi had followed at the advice of Lord Brahma for the purpose of receiving Lord Vamanadev as their son. So this went on for 12 years. They fasted on just milk, performing austerities. And after 12 years, um, Madhavacharya was born. So we can see that before the Lord came, both the mind and the heart of the Brahmin and his wife had been completely purified, and everything was done according to the proper rituals and the proper time. So no one knows the exact date of Madhavacharya's appearance. There are different opinions, but the most widely accepted date for Madhavacharya's appearance is 1238 AD. It is most widely believed that he lived up to the age of 79. So from his very early childhood, he was completely attractive to everyone. If his mother would call him, he would just like appear out of nowhere. He had that because he was the son of Vayu. Like Hanuman, he would just jump from one place to another. And he was so brilliant that whatever he heard, he would immediately know. When he was 5 years old, he was sent to the school to start studying. And he would listen, but he would never do any of the work. He would go outside and play. And then the teacher was complaining, "Why are you going outside and playing?" But then he would say, "Because I heard what it is." And he would sit down and he would give word for word what was being said in the class. So he had knowledge not only of what was being taught then, but what would be taught in the future. And he could recite anything just immediately. It would flow from him like nectar. So he was very, very attractive. He would play with all of his different friends, and they would enact different pastimes. He was extremely, extremely strong. And throughout his whole life, actually, he stressed the importance of keeping physically strong and healthy. He said that if your body is not healthy, then it is hard for your mind to be focused, that the mind becomes weak. So he was very much active and engaged in sports and different activities of running and swimming, etc. So one time, there's a famous story that one time there was his father was actually quite poor, and he had borrowed money to buy a bull. And then one time, the person who he had lent the money from came and knocked on the door, said it was time for him to repay, that he should repay. But he didn't have the money at the time. He was very stressed. What am I going to do, And the man said, "If you don't pay me now, I'm going to just stand out here, outside your door." So then Madhavacharya was just a young boy. He said, "Oh, don't worry. I'll take care of this." So he took the man out to the garden, and the story goes that he picked up some tamarind seeds, which was the exact amount of the gold. And then when he gave it to the man, that those tamarind seeds turned into gold. It is also said that the Tattvaris themselves, in their particular tradition, they tell another part of the pastime where they say that that Madhavacharya showed him a vision of devotional service and of the spiritual world. And then the man felt like, I've gotten something so much more worth than gold. But in either way, Madhavacharya did that particular service for his family. And he was always involved in some kind of miracle, actually, in so many different ways, and bringing so much joy to his family. One time when he was a young child, he was maybe like 3 years old, he disappeared and nobody can find him. And then someone spotted him very far away in Udupi, and they were thinking, how did he get here, this young boy by himself? And he said, Lord Narayan himself came and took me by the hand and he brought me here. So from his very early childhood, he was completely absorbed in Lord Narayan. When he was playing the different pastimes of the Lord. And it was also explained how one time this snake tried to attack him, and with just one moment, he completely killed the snake. He was very expert at wrestling with his friends, and so he had so many childhood pastimes. But then came a point in his life where he was ready to go forward in his spiritual life. He was only 12 years old, and he decided to leave home. So we could only imagine how hard that was for his family, because here he was, like this amazing personality, and their son, and then all of a sudden he decides to leave home at such a very, very young age. And so he went to the home of his spiritual master to study. And when he went there, actually it was he was actually a Mayavadi, but by his association, he immediately became transformed. So I wanted to read some of Madhvacharya's 9 teachings. Just take me a minute to get them. And then we'll speak some about his beautiful, beautiful deity. He taught Bhagavan Sri Krishna alone is the supreme absolute truth, one without a second. So he had this one-pointed vision. And in our devotional life, it is very important that we have a one-pointed vision. Because just like if you're going to build a well or dig a well, if you're always digging in different places, you're never going to get water. So in devotional life also, we should have a one-pointed vision. And we should also be very fixed in what is the Siddhanta, and according to our previous acharyas. He's the object of all knowledge in the Vedas, so that all the Vedas are meant to lead us to Sri Krishna. And of course, we know in our line with Madhavendra Puri, it goes even deeper, that it leads us to the worship of Radha and Krishna. The universe is real, satya. So the Mayavadis were teaching neti, nothing is real, everything is illusion. So Madhvacharya, he was teaching extreme duality. There's a living entity and there's a supreme Lord. Where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he takes from all the different sampradayas, Ramanujacharya, the different sampradayas, and he takes 2 lessons from all of them, brings them together, and then we have what's called Achinta Beta Beta Tattva philosophy. The difference between Ishwara, God, Jiva soul, and matter are real. Jiva souls are by nature the servants of the Supreme Lord, which we know is something that Srila Prabhupada stressed a lot to us, that we are servants of the Supreme Lord. There are 2 categories of jiva, liberated and illusion, like eternally liberated and eternally nityabhata, illusion. Liberation means attaining the lotus feet of Bhagavan, in other words, entering an eternal relationship of service to the Supreme Lord. So this is the importance of not just knowing about the Supreme Lord, but being engaged in service. Pure devotional service to Krishna is the only way to attain this liberation. The truth may be known by pratyaksha, direct perception, anuman, inference or logic, shabda, spiritual sound, or Vedic authority. Sri Madhvacharya serves as Madhavi Gopi and Radha Govinda's eternal Vrindavan pleasure pastimes. So there's a very interesting pastime that took place, and that is about Madhvacharya installing a very beautiful deity of Gopal, alone holding a cowherd stick. So the story goes that once Madhavendra Puri saw, not Madhavendra, Madhavacharya saw that there was a ship that was caught in a storm out in the ocean. So he waved his top cloth as a way to direct him in. Being the wind god, he was actually able to even direct the ship to come in. So the person who was riding the ship, he was so happy that he'd been saved, and he asked him, "Is there anything you would like?" And he said, "I'm a sannyasi. I don't need anything, but I could use some tilak." So we know he used Gopi Chandan tilak, which comes from Dwarka. "I'd like some tilak." And he goes, "Oh, I just happen to have a big chunk of tilak that I'm using as a baluster." So he gave him that tilak. And then as the tilak fell away, there was this beautiful, beautiful deity of Krishna. Such a beautiful deity. And it's explained who this deity actually was. There's two stories. One story is that one time Devaki, she said to Krishna in Dwarka, "I never got to see your childhood pastimes. I only saw you as a baby and then you left. But I heard those pastimes were so beautiful. Please show them to me." So then Krishna manifested his childhood pastimes. Devaki was in ecstasy. So then Rukmini, she heard about this. And she goes, "I want to see them also." And he said, "No, you're my wife. You're my wife. I can't show you the pastimes like I did my mother. But instead, I will have Vishmakarma arrange make a deity for you of my childhood. And if you worship this deity regularly, then the deity will reveal to you all of my pastimes." Actually, this is another important point that Madhavacharya taught. He taught that the deity is non-different than Krishna, that we should not see the deity as something material, but as being actually Krishna. So then this beautiful deity manifested, and Rukmini was worshiping him. The other story is this Devaki, she wasn't involved. It was just Rukmini wanting to see the beautiful pastimes. And so then this deity was carved. So she worshipped for many years. And then when everyone was leaving, Krishna wound up his pastimes, everybody was leaving, the deity was put in like in the ground, not in the ground, but like in the river or ocean, was put underneath. There's a particular place he was put. And then that was eventually taken out and as this Gopi Chandan. This was like near Dwarka. And we know from our Indian congregation, many of them have come from Gujarat, from that area. They all worship this form of Krishna with a stick, and very, very beautiful Krishna, dancing Krishna, and very, very merciful. So that's a very, very sweet story. And he worshipped that deity, and that deity is still being presently worshipped. And there were some other points I wanted to, then one of the most important points, the important point that I wanted to mention was that Sri Madhavacharya, he was so concerned that whatever he presented would be proper. And he knew that the teachings also had been lost, just like we hear very often how the Mahabharata had become corrupted. And that Sri Madhavacharya wrote his own actually commentary on it. So how did he do these things? Is that he decided that he was going to go himself and see Vedavyas, who was living up in Bhadrak Ashram, because there are certain personalities that stay. They don't leave, but we can't visit them. But being that he was the son of the wind god, he was able to just climb up and have Srila Vyasadev's darshan and humbly come before him like a disciple and take instructions from him. So he was personally instructed by Srila Vyasadeva. And that's why our disciplic succession is so authorized. It's coming through Srila Vyasadeva. And Srila Madhavacharya, he really stressed the importance of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, how important, how very, very important they were. He was able to, he traveled the wide and length everywhere, all over India, because as I said before, he was determined that, and as he was determined that he was going to annihilate, he was in the mood of a warrior. He was going to annihilate this Mayavadi teachings. When he was just a young boy, he had told his father, I want to travel and preach. I want to teach, the worship of Krishna. And I want to annihilate the teachings of Shankaracharya. And his father said, that's impossible. How can you do something like that? And then his father said, he said, see this stick here? A stick cannot grow a mango tree. How can you annihilate? So he took the stick, he broke it in 3 ways, he put it in the ground, and a mango tree came from it. So he was given that benediction that he would be the one to go and to spread this teaching. And as I said before, we are so fortunate because we are connected through Madhavendra Puri, and Madhavendra Puri was the spiritual master of Ishwara Puri, who Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted. And this has been shown many times, because sometimes people will say, well, how is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu connected to this sampradaya, or how are you connected? And it is shown through these different writings that even before, some will say, well, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he used to live in South India, so he tried to bring them together. But it says, no, that, there are the different acharyas, different personalities that spoke about the connection. And Madhavendra Puri is the one that really brought the sweetness of the conjugal relationship and changed it from just being the rituals. And that is why we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because we're following as coming through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're so indebted to Madhavacharya. And in my own life, I think, well, how does this all apply to me? And the one-pointedness, that he was one-pointed on his mission, that he had great faith in the personal form of the Lord, he had great faith in the deity, and he took higher guidance from Srila Vyasadeva. So thank you very much. I'm sorry if the class jumped around a lot. There was just so much to share and very little time. But tonight you'll be giving Sunday feast on it, isn't it, Gurudev? So tonight, if you listen or come to the Sunday lecture, there'll be a much more detailed description of Madhavacharya and his beautiful pastimes. Somehow the clock is different over there than it is on the altar.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Bhajami. Enam Kanvanda Paravindalayatam Bhartavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Dandar Atom Vidamaniya Vishkesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ardhani Akrasa Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Gayanti Nirakanti Ananta Chinmaya Sadhu Dala Vikrasya Govinda Adi Purusha Amaham Bhajami Govinda Adi Purusha Amaham Bhajami Govinda Adi Purusha Amaham Bhajami Govinda Adi Purusha Amaham
Vajamin. Namaham Vishnu Vajaya Krishna Prastaya Muktanday Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Samanitina Vinay Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Samanitina Vinay Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacha Nirvisesha Shunyavade Vasachare Vacharane Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gacchara Sivasare Gaurmata Vrindaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Advaita Gacchara Sivasare Gaurmata Vrindaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanijana Shri Advaita Gacchara Sivasare Gaurmata Vrindaya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanijana Shri Advaita Gacchara Sivasare Gaurmata Vrindaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Ram, I'm looking at a rat, looking at a rat, hey. Jaya Ram, looking at a rat, looking at a rat, hey. Jaya Ram, hey. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa. His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada. ISKCON founder. Say Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Taranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Pradamrita Spadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nam Makari Bahuda Nivashar Shaktish Tatrapita Nimata Smaranena Tala Etadrashi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durvdaiva Drishamiha Kaninana Raga Trinada Pi Sunichena Taroriva Shihishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishpare Bhavatad Bhakti Radhai Taki Twaye Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patidam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Padapankaja Stita Duli Satrasam Vijintaya Nayanam Galudashru Dareha Vadanam Gadgara Rudya Gira Pulaka Nichitam Vapukata Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugayitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravishaitam Shunyayitam Jakat Sarvam Govinda Vidahena Me Ashlishabha Panashtubam Adarshanam Marmatam Karotuva Yatadata Vadadatu Lampato Mat Prananatus to Sevana Paraha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust, usually for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shikshashtaka